Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. New year, same stories for the Sharks and the Bulls. Same misery, really, for two franchise or unions that are really struggling at the moment. And the New Year's matches, well, they weren't maybe all timers, either of them, to be perfectly honest. Both very tight contests. And I mean, shout out to the Lions. Nothing like a little 80-minute win, just in the last minute. Hashim P coming off the bench, somebody who's everybody's been having an absolute conniption about the lack of game time. I personally don't think it's that deep, to be honest. I mean, he's 20 years old. He's got potentially 18 years of his career ahead of him. And the Lions are going to integrate him as we go. But just trust the Lions, people. How many youngsters have you produced in the last few years? Trust the process. But for the Bulls and the Sharks, not good weekends, and they're suddenly looking really, really out of it as we kind of going into the second half of the season. It's time to start finding that consistency, start making those runs, because places in the URC playoffs, for example, are going to, I mean, if you're still in a position right now where even if you're at the bottom of the log, you can probably mathematically make it to the URC playoffs. But you've got to find a better consistency. You've got to find some results, and that's not quite happening for those two sides. However, for the Lions and the Stormers, the perfect way to start the year, and the Stormers have not lost a game all season across all competitions, and a pretty incredible run. Anyway, we're going to have a look at exactly what the logs look like and kind of where it's maybe going wrong for the likes of the Bulls and the Sharks. And a very interesting stat shows you exactly what the Lions are doing so well, what the Stormers are doing so well, but also kind of show you exactly what the Stormers are doing that the Lions aren't doing. For example, that has the Stormers in first, Lions down seventh. And the same sort of stat shows you exactly why the Bulls and the Sharks sit quite far below. Before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, let's have a look, shall we? And this is the standings after round 9. And as you can see over there, Stormers 8 from 8, 36 points, 4 bonus points. They're getting a bonus point every second game. They have got 2 points on the Glasgow Warriors, who have got a game more than the Stormers. If you look at the Lions, down in 7th place, and what's really good for them is the fact that they have a game fewer than the likes of a Benton and the Ospreys, who are right behind them, and they can't catch up Munster if they were to win that catch-up game, but they can get themselves within about 4 points and get themselves more, I think, maybe into that sort of top 6 mix, because the problem with the Lions is we've always been sort of sitting in and around 7th, 8th, and then we kind of come short in the final, few game weeks. But if you look at the Bulls, for example, 3 wins after 8 matches, the Sharks 2 wins after 8 matches. It's just unacceptable. I mean, for the Sharks to have the team that they have and to sit 7 points behind the Lions is really, really poor, to be brutally honest. And even the Bulls, for example, this is a team that was in the final a few months ago, sit currently outside the playoff spots. It's worrying. But the main thing, and this is what I mentioned, is the fact that if you look at the top 8, Benton currently in 19 points. Now, if the Bulls, for example, were to win their game next game with a bonus point, they could actually go ahead of Benton. So a bonus point win puts the Bulls right back into the playoffs. And I expect them to make the playoffs, to be perfectly honest. I just don't think with the kind of quality they have, that, and especially now with the Springbok sort of coaching interventions, that they're going to continue this sort of bad form. I see them making the playoffs, to be perfectly honest. I think the Sharks can make the playoffs. It's obviously a bit more difficult for them after that. But again, if they win with a bonus point, they can actually be 8th. The problem is obviously these are SA derbies coming up. And, especially when it comes to SA derbies, the fact that, the Sharks lost at home, for example, against the Lions, that's a game that they expect to win. And that's a game at the beginning of the season they would put on paper and said, right, that's a very winnable game. So it's going to be interesting. Luckily, if you look at the South African sides, they've not got terrible run-ins towards the end of the season, which sort of helps. But it's not a good look from a South African perspective to have, one team just in the playoffs and then 2 teams out. Now, again, this is not entirely accurate given the fact that there are games in hand. But we're definitely not dominating the URC at the moment, and would like to sort of see maybe at least 3 teams in the playoffs. The good news is at the moment we do have, without question, the strongest team right now on form in the competition. Stormers, they're 8 from 8, 36 points, 6 points ahead of Leinster, who have played a game more. Shows you just how dominant the Stormers have been. But I thought an interesting stat to look at is this one over here, and I think we'll revisit basically the table in a bit. But this sort of shows you that the Lions and the Stormers at the moment are attacking so well. They are scoring lots and lots of points. Where the difference between the two is quite simply the Lions are conceding too many points. I mean, they have scored five fewer points than the Stormers. Stormers have a points difference of 136. The Lions have a points difference of -8. And that just goes to show that the Lions are just conceding too much. So Jacques Foury's got a lot of work cut out for him in the next few months at trying to understand why the Lions are conceding so many soft tries. And they really are soft tries. If you're watching the Lions games, so many of the tries are preventable. But if you look at the attacking stats over there, it tells a very, very interesting story. And it shows you that this Lions side continues to know how to attack really, really well. So the Stormers at the moment, they've scored 29 tries so far this season. The Lions have scored 30. If you look at offloads, meters carried, defenders beaten, and clean breaks, the Lions cleaning up across all the different unions. The Lions have more offloads, 40 more. They've got 400 more meters gained than the Stormers. They've got over 50 more defenders beaten, and not 30-yard clean breaks. So it just shows you that the Lions on attack are top draw, that they've got this offload game that we've seen. They keep the ball alive. And I think sometimes that's maybe what makes them slightly vulnerable to sort of the counter attack. But if you look at the Stormers, the Bulls and the Sharks, that's where the worry is at the moment. Now, you look at the Bulls having scored 27 tries. Again, they're kind of a little bit like the Lions this season, where they've scored lots of points at 192, not that far behind, but they've also conceded a lot of points. But the Sharks have scored just 156 points so far this season. They've got 60-odd less defenders beaten than the Lions, for example, almost 700 fewer meters gained. And the table reflects that. If you look at the table, the Sharks have scored 156 points, conceded 215. Bulls have scored 192, conceded 224. The Lions have scored 226 and conceded 234. What makes the Stormers so impressive is they have conceded less than 100 points per game. 95 points conceded so far from the Stormers. And that is why when we look at this table, they are so far ahead. They are the only team who have not conceded more than 100 points so far. Glasgow Warriors second place, 112. After that, everyone's basically north of about 140. So that's kind of the difference at the moment. Now, I think that if you're a Stormers fan, obviously nothing needs to change. If you're a Lions fan, you can see the defense needs to change. Bulls and Sharks fans, well, I think the main thing is that they've got to find a way of winning games. Both scenarios this weekend, the Bulls should potentially have, you say should, could, would have, not saying they were a better side, but had they taken their points a bit better, could have won the game. The Sharks did score a try off a knock-on, so maybe not quite as straightforward, but once again can't see out games, despite having an absolutely stacked side. And I think it just goes to show that, for example, everybody keeps talking about the disaster as the Lions. Well, it is a bit of a disaster. I mean, and I'm a Lions fan, I know. But the results aren't necessarily effective. What's so frustrating from a Lions perspective is that they lost to Zebra, they lost to Bantam. And those are two teams that they should have beaten. At least should have beaten Zebra. And I think if the Lions are on 26 points after 8, it would be more reflective of where they are. And once again, the Lions keep threatening to be a decent side. The Bulls and the Sharks, though, at the moment just seem to lack an identity. And I think the Sharks have sometimes almost worried so much about what their appearance is, what their official identity is, what the culture is, that they're not focusing on what is their identity on the field. How do they play rugby? How are they attacking? How are they defending? How are they winning games? And I think that that's been an aspect. I think maybe it's time for them to kind of maybe focus a little more on the rugby things than maybe all the off the ball and outside the game. I'm not to say that you don't want to dismiss some of that stuff, but I think they became such a big. They almost sort of became self-appointed champions of creating this new inclusive culture and this new look, new age, very progressive sort of union and very inclusive, and everyone's one big Sharks family and culture, and it hasn't reflected on the field. And where John Dobson's got everything so right is that he's found that balance. He's created a winning culture, more importantly, but he's also created a culture which suits the players and the style that they play and feeds into your likes of a Sash Van Gomazulus, your Damian Willemse, your Kobus Ryan's, the players that like to express themselves, and Evan Roos, and they're playing a brand of rugby that suits the players they have. Whereas you just don't feel that's necessarily the case right now with the Bulls and the Sharks. What are your thoughts, though? Where do you think that we might sort of see this log change over the next few months? Games are going to come thick and fast. EPCR games coming in. Obviously, if teams don't necessarily qualify for the next round, that reduces their sort of games they have to play. That can sometimes help them with regards to a bit of a run in terms of getting players back and the likes of that. Where do you see things changing? What do you think is going wrong with those two unions? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.